Rink White Chef Paterson, our Canucks reporter, who joined us at Park last night for our pregame show and then headed on over, steps away to Rogers Arena to cover, well, a game unlike many this season. Jeff, first of all, your overall impressions on blowing a 3-goal lead and losing the Avalanche 4-3.
No, I'm kicking myself for not dropping that $5 bet on Mikheyev that we talked about on the pregame show.
Thank you.
Look,
I'm collecting.
I mean, sum it up, dream start, nightmare finish, right? I mean, 24 seconds in, you open the scoring, and 2 minutes later, you've got a 2-0 lead, and it felt like this is Winnipeg all over again, and that these guys mean business, and they extended their lead to 3-0, and everything was sunshine and roses, and then we know where it went from there. I mean, that goal with 2 seconds left in the second period, just an absolute crusher in hindsight, but this team has to be stronger. It's got to be stronger mentally. It's got to be stronger physically. It's got to be stronger on pucks, as Rick Tocchet said a couple of times at the podium in the aftermath. But yeah, a goal with 1.8 seconds remaining just sort of opened the door, because you figured back-to-back for the Avs, if they go to the third period down 3-0, they're not going to roll over, but maybe they think it's just not their night, and their willingness to battle for every loose puck probably recedes somewhat. But now it's a 3-1 game, and they're thinking, hey, we're a shot away from making it a 1-goal game. And sure enough, they get the power play goal early and then had all sorts of time to even it up, which they did. So, you know, I was on with you guys after the 10-7 loss in Minnesota, and I said, quite frankly, I thought that this Canuck team had progressed past the point where they were mentally fragile, and that there had been enough learning lessons and some tests along the way. And I look back now, and by my math, this is the 5th time since the middle of January where the Canucks have squandered either a 3-goal or a 2-goal lead. Now, the game against Toronto, when they were up 3-0 and then tied 3-3, they went on to win. But the other ones has cost them points in the standings. And so, you know, that is a little troubling, because 15 games to go, everything has to be looked at through a playoff prism now. Absolutely everything. And if this recent history is there for the Vancouver Canucks, other teams around the league are going to know it. Their first-round playoff opponent's going to know it, that, hey, if we lean on these guys, they maybe can't handle the heat as well as they ought to. So I do think that this is something that Rick Tocchet has to address, and ultimately the players have to figure out before game one of round one.
Yeah, let's ask you the Tim Hortons poll question then, Jeff. Does their record against Colorado give you concerns for the playoffs?
Well, look, they just passed tests beating Los Angeles, Vegas, and Winnipeg in succession. And I think for the crowd that said, who have they beaten? They offered up 3 pretty good examples there. So they're not going to face Colorado in the first round. They may run into Colorado somewhere down the line. Look, if they run into Colorado in the third round, this season has been an overwhelming success. And you take your chances. They've played the Avs hard in all 3 games, but they didn't get it right. And so did they beat Colorado? No, they didn't. And playing them hard, you know, maybe that gives them something to build on if they do run into them in the postseason. But I don't think the fact that they haven't beat Colorado leaves me with reason for concern. I think it's more the leads that are getting away from them, the power play guys, that is a massive issue. And they got schooled in special teams last night. Colorado scores twice with the man advantage. The Canucks go over. And it's funny because Rick Tocchet at the podium after the morning skate on Wednesday had said, I don't care about our overall power play percentage. When the game is tied 3-3 with 6 minutes to go, that's the power play that matters. Well, guess what? It wasn't 6 minutes. It was 8 minutes to go. They get a power play in a 3-all game. Nils Höglander gets the bounce of his lifetime to the front of the net, and maybe in a little too deep, but stuffs it right into Alexander Georgiev. But even as that game was slipping away, there was a chance there with the man advantage to go back in front and pull a victory out of the fire. A power play that is now a shade over 15% in 18 games since the All-Star break. 8 goals in that time, but 2 of them have been 4-on-3 power play overtime goals. So conventional power plays, they have 6 goals in 18 games since the All-Star break with all of their stars healthy. And so this is where I come back to this playoff prism. If you're scoring a power play goal once every 3 games, 2 power play goals in a 6-game playoff series, guess what? You're not advancing. You're not. Like, your power play has to come through for you. It probably has to win you a game or 2 in the playoffs, especially with the talent that they can roll out there. So this is go time now. 15 games remaining. They have to get this power play figured out, because it has to be better. And there were moments in that game against Colorado and other games where the power play could have risen to the challenge and won them a game. and it hasn't. And I do, of all the things, when I think of the star power the Canucks possess, a power play that is 29th by league ranking since the All-Star break, ahead of Columbus, New Jersey, and Philadelphia, worst in the Western Conference, there's some red flags there for me.
And it looked terrible just on the judges' cards, too, the power play last night, like just not looking good at all. Hey, they were the second best team over the final two periods. There's no question about it. There's no debating that, I don't think. And yet, I honestly believe you don't have to go too many dimensions over to find a way in which the Canucks win this game, maybe 3-2 in regulation time, because the closing goal there to end the second period, I mean, you're 1.8 seconds away from escaping with a 3-0 lead after two periods. And that Carson Soucy thing, I mean, that's an inch, right? That's an inch away, and you're at least going into overtime 50-50 with a chance to steal a point back as well. I mean, there's a bit of puck luck that also reared its head, in addition to playing poor over the final 40, but they might have been able to escape it with just a smidge of puck luck.
Well, and Harmon, I talked on Rink Quiet, like, usually in a game there is a turning point or two. I felt there were 5 turning points in that hockey game last night. When you go back to
it's called the hexagon.
Josh Manson's hit on JT Miller, like, why that wasn't reviewed, assess a major in the moment and then review it. Like, it was a clear check to the head. It wasn't a boarding call. It was a check to the head. That was the penalty. Give him 5 and then review it. And they didn't. They elected to give him a 2, and Miller wasn't available for the power play. So, that was a swing in Colorado's favor early in the hockey game when it's already a 2-0 lead for the Canucks. And then we talk about the late second period goal. And then we talk about Ian Cole. Yes, there's a little bit of contact there, but come on, Nathan McKinnon, the Oscars were on Sunday. Like, talk about a sell job and a star getting a call there. But we've seen the Canucks running into 5-on-3 problems in that game in Minnesota, among others. But then the Höglander chance, and then, as you point out, Blake, Carson Soucy, and we've been talking him up, and he has been good in his return, and that is unfortunate. And look, like, they needed an Elias Lindholm faceoff win with 10 seconds to go just to get that thing to overtime to get to secure a single point. So once it was at 3-3, to me, it was like, you got to get something out of this hockey game. And all points are good points at this stage of the season. Yes. That's not the silver lining here, but it really is about amassing as many points as you can. And so they should have had 2, they get 1, and hopefully some lessons learned. But, again, as Rick Tocchet said post-game, like, you just got to dig in. And his team didn't. They looked spooked. They got outshot 17-3 in that third period by a Colorado team where the Stars revved things up. And unfortunately for the Canucks, JT Miller was really the only star that was going for the hockey game last night. And it is fair, I think, to apply some heat to Elias Pettersson, who, Miller takes on the McKinnon matchup. The Canucks outscore the Avs 2-1 at even strength with McKinnon. Like, they won the 5-on-5 battle with Nathan McKinnon on the ice.
That's it. Yeah.
And then
didn't look great, but they did ultimately win.
But Elias Pettersson draws Casey Middlestad and his line, like, absolute advantage to the Vancouver Canucks, you'd think. And Pettersson didn't get a shot on goal in his minutes against Casey Middlestad. So, not a banner night.
Are you concerned of Pettersson versus the better teams, Jeff, this year?
Yes, I am. I think that's a fair critique that, he's dropped below the 100-point pace now. He can still get there if the power play heats up. But remember the night in Pittsburgh when he scored the overtime winner, he outdueled Sid, and the Canucks were on that barnstorming tour of the East. He left that night in Pittsburgh on a 111-point pace. He's now on a 97-point pace. Like, there has been a significant drop in his production. I think we've all seen that for ourselves, but just to put some numbers to it, from 111-point pace, for all the people that have just kind of thrown out this idea of back-to-back 100-point seasons, he's got to get on his horse now over the final 15 games to be a 100-point guy this year. And whether he finishes with 101 or 100 on the nose, or like JT a couple of years ago, 99, that's not really the issue. I mean, points-wise, he's going to finish with a big number. But the question now is he going to be able to put up numbers in the playoffs against good opponents, the same opponent, night after night after night, where you have to get 4 wins out of 7, where matchups are just pivotal and adjustments and all those types of things? Yeah, I've got some concerns because he has been remarkably quiet. I don't think he's taken over a game since the All-Star break. He may not have taken over a game since that Pittsburgh game that I referenced. And we're working our way closer. Again, 15 to go, everything through a playoff lens right now. I have some concerns about, is he going to be able to elevate and not just play hard, but ultimately you got to produce. when the chips are down at playoff time, and he did it in the bubble. So there is a track record. I'm not going to say that he hasn't done it in the past, but yeah, he's got to find a way to leave way more of a stamp on more hockey games than he has over the last 20 or so.
There's lots to talk about in his game that we'd like to see just a little bit different. But to me, his puck control just seems off this year. It's amazing for us to even have a criticism of a guy who's on pace for 97 points. It doesn't seem fair. It doesn't seem right. But, this is a $12 million player, $11.6 million player. You do expect a certain look to that player. And it just seems like the puck is not sitting for him when he, rest in peace, Jason Botchford, bro, do your deeks. The deeks seem a little bit, I don't know, lack of control. And this, he's had moments. Was it the goal against the Rangers at MSG where he's below the goal line and tucks it? I mean, there are moments you can point to. But like last night, he's sliding through the slot there with some momentum, and the puck's just kind of jumping on him, and you expected player of his ability to be able to calm that puck and get a shot away, and the play just fizzled and it quickly turned the other way. There was no attempt on goal even. So I just, I don't know. It feels like it's between the years, I guess is what I'm saying here, Jeff. It feels like there's something going on for him that he just isn't himself necessarily.
Yeah, look, we've all seen his PD magic. The entire market has seen his PD magic, and for long stretches. And even this year, I mean, he got shut out of a cannon the first 20 games. What did he have? First 10 games. I think he had 21 points in the first 10 games. Like, he was on fire to start the season, and the team was. And as a result, look at the record then. And then that stretch in mid-January. And again, he was one of the leaders and absolute drivers of that successful road trip. But since then, and does it correspond to the noise picking up around his contract? But the hope was that the contract's put to bed. He's got his bag now. Even Rick Tocchet had said earlier in the week that he thought that, he had talked to him and he felt that he was in a better mind space, and he scored a nice goal in Los Angeles there, and a big one to tie that game at 1 last week. And he got a goal against Winnipeg on the power play the other night. So, there have been moments here and there, but it overall, he's not dominating games the way a guy like JT Miller has. And maybe I'm not trying to pit him against Miller, but again, in this market, people understand. I mean, our audience follows this team. They know, like, JT, just look at the start last night. Like, that had a big game feel, and JT Miller was there from the opening faceoff and is in on the first 2 goals. And as I said, like, he's taken on McKinnon and holding his own in that matchup, and they needed something from the lower layers of that lineup. Like, that's where they think that they have advantages on other teams, and it just wasn't there. So, like, you can't use the contract and the noise, but guys, like, if he didn't like the noise around $7.5 million, if it doesn't go well at playoff at time for him and this team, the volume is going to get cranked up again for a guy that's going to be making close to $12 million for the next 8 seasons. So the contract story isn't put to bed yet. I mean, the contract it's signed, but absolutely something worth watching here over the final 15, and then once they hit the start line for the playoffs.
And hey, they've beaten 29 teams in the NHL this season, so they there's not many other teams that have been a kryptonite quite like the Colorado Avalanche have. But hey, guys, maybe we have a new dragon to slay for the Vancouver Canucks. Makes for a good call. Sure, he's got it in his back pocket if he needs it.
I think we need some playoff series there first. Incidentally, no points against Colorado this year for Liz Pettersson.
Oh, yeah.
Shutout in the 3 games against the Avalanche. Do you get the sense that Canuck luck is rearing its head here, Jeff, with everything that's going on with the club? The Demko injury, I mean, Susie over the glass, game-winning goal off a face mask, for heaven's sakes. Do you get a sense? We had gone through 3/4 of the season like going, pinch me. I can't believe how great things are going for the Canucks. Everything is going right. And yet now we're seeing the worm turn a little.
I'm not sure I'm there with you. They just came off a 4-game win streak. They've picked up points in 5 straight. Did the worm turn in Minnesota? Like, that was the bizarre game to me that I thought was a bit of an outlier. Obviously, the similarity is that a 5-on-3 in the third period with Casey DeSmith in goal last night. But yeah, look, yes, there were some bounces, certainly, but they've had their share of bounces as well along the way. You don't get to 92 points without getting a couple that go in your favor. So it was a Colorado team that looked determined. I don't know how you explain the first 40 minutes. As good as the Canucks were, the Avs looked somewhat disinterested. Like Nathan McKinnon didn't ever rev it up and get on one of those patented rushes. The Canucks did a nice job in the neutral zone. Cale Makar, I thought, had a sleepy game for the most part. He and Quinn Hughes, as much as we talked that up, neither one of them was among the stars of the hockey game last night. So I give Colorado star power. Like I think they recognize McKinnon knows that even over 20 minutes, he can still take a game over. Rantanen just gets overshadowed by McKinnon, and it's a little unfortunate because the guy is just an absolute beast. And again, his goal sparks the comeback. He has a 3-point night, just a handful, obviously. So, a little unfortunate for the Vancouver Canucks. Yeah, but I don't know that the worm has turned. I don't think this is going to, I hope this isn't start a run for Carson Soucy where he's flipping pucks into row 7. I think that was a one-off, and, it'll be interesting. We've talked about load management. Noah Juulsen on the ice for all 4 goals last night. I think that probably opens the door for a healthy Tyler Myers to get back in on Saturday. And then, we'll see where it goes from there. I would think that, Myers will be a fixture, but Ian Cole might come out. Juulsen probably will see a few more games along the way, but it's going to be interesting to see. But I would think that when you're on the ice for all 4 and a 4-3 loss, the door is probably open to you coming out, making way for a veteran like Tyler Myers to get back in there on Saturday.
Last one for me. Physically, the Canucks started amazing. I think Podkolzin had 5 hits in the first period or something crazy like that. They looked okay physically to start, but does the addition of Dakota Joshua make a difference in that game? If he's available last night, do you think that with those big forwards bearing down the likes of Rantanen and McKinnon, does Joshua make a significant difference in that game?
Like we've said about Soucy, he makes them better. Mm-hmm. Does he win them that hockey game? I don't know, but certainly, like even look on the Ross Colton goal. Like that's Garland's out there. Garland's trying his best to tie up Ross Colton, but he lost that battle, and ultimately that puck gets in. If it's Dakota Joshua, just a bigger man, maybe he's able to keep Colton at bay a little bit more. Garland's effort was there. I thought Garland was really good last night.
Determined, yeah.
Yeah, just making a lot of things happen. Unfortunately for him on that play, that was a bad sequence, and you could just feel the confidence there that, they couldn't get the puck out, and Colorado again continued to turn up the heat, and that's the Avs getting a goal from lower in the lineup. And I know the Canucks got a defenseman goal, so maybe that is a push in that regard. But the Joshua one is curious to me, and Rick Tocchet earlier in the week saying something to the effect of they're going to be really cautious here, that if it means keeping him out for an extra 3 or 5 days, that's how they're going to do it with Dakota Joshua. So we keep thinking that one of these days he's going to appear at practice, and we'll get a better sense that that's how close he is, but not there yet with that player. So they would like to have had him. Without a doubt, they didn't. But I don't know that, that one addition to the lineup would have swung the game in the Canucks' favor.
Yeah. Patrick Allvin with his 10 to 14 days. That would mean 4 to 8 days from here if we're still on that timeline for Joshua. And then lastly, I would like to note a Canuck had a Gordie Howe hat trick last night. And has it come up here at all?
No.
Wasn't a great night for big Nikita.
Despite, it was a bizarre night for Nikita Zadorov because to the eye, he was everywhere. He was doing all sorts of things, and a goal and an assist, and then not much of a fight, but it does go into the books as a fighting major and avenging the Manson hit on JT Miller. So doing what he does, and that's part of his role here. But at the end of the night, I was a little surprised when I looked under the hood and saw he had a team worst Corsi for 15%. And we talked about the fact that Juulsen was on the ice for all 4 goals, 2 on the power play, 2 at evens. Zadorov was out there for the 2 even strength goals as a pairing with Juulsen. So, you think, hey, the guy scores, that's great, and he's hitting and he's fighting. But a Corsi of 15%. When he wasn't hitting and scoring, he was spending the night, the rest of the night defending and not doing the best job of that. So, a little curious there. But again, I think that speaks to Juulsen, Zadorov. That's a third pair, and they got absolutely worked by the Colorado Avalanche. And so how much confidence do you have in those guys moving forward? And that's why I would think that if Tyler Myers does have the green light, we probably see a new look on defense as early as Saturday.
Said last night on the pregame show, Zadorov in the playoffs is either going to be feast or famine, I think. I think you're going to have either really some tire fire nights and then some really great nights where his physicality works. So going to be interesting.
Right. And I'll take my $5 tomorrow at Northlands for the Mikheyev goal.
Oh, well, he said the same thing, though. He had the same prediction. Who are you collecting?
Well,
No, he
I'm
said he
giving
wasn't.
you money. I was going to lay money down at the casino. You were never the middleman.
I told you guys, I said Mikheyev breaks the schneid
So
tonight.
did he, though. He agreed with you.
Okay. Yeah. You owe money then. Thanks, Jeff.
All right, guys.
Hey, everybody, if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, then follow along with Sekeres and Price on YouTube. I promise more content coming.
The kids call it subscribe on YouTube.
Well, how about liking it?
Do that as well. Smash it right now.